All right. Thank you for coming, everybody. So today we're going to talk about active learning spaces, and we're going to give you a little bit of structure about how we get to where we were for designing them, because I think that there's a lot of things that come together that really help us. So that this won't start out super technical in the beginning, but as we get to the classrooms and very open to questions and things that you might want to ask about. So let me get going on my presentation here. All right, so just a quick thing about me. I've been at MSU for 21 years, and we have roughly 300 classrooms or learning spaces. And my team is kind of pretty diverse. I have the instructional design team, the learning space, computer labs and imaging, and all the live streaming and AV events that we have on campus. So I encompass a good portion of our overall IT areas. And then also myself and then many of my employees also teach on campus. And that's one of the things that I think has helped us as we've developed relationships with faculty, is that it's a lot easier for us to talk about how a classroom space should be designed when we talk about how we teach versus how you should teach. And so we'll get a little bit more in depth in that. But that's just a little bit about me. Um, just want to set the stage for where I'm at frame wise. For us, the pandemic, there's a silver lining. It was disruptive. It's disruptive in a world that higher ed doesn't move very quickly, and it's forcing us to make some quick changes and really rethinking our strategies about how we're going to address the classroom. And honestly, as you look at our students, I've been calling them traditionally non-traditional, but we have students coming in that have kids that work that are not our normal students, and we need to be prepared to help those people be successful in the classroom. And so some of what we're doing is bringing those people in, and maybe it's not always on campus. So some of our active learning spaces actually are trying to engage online students with face-to-face students in the classroom. And then the other thing to think about with our students that are coming in, we have 12 years of students who are going to have online experience, who are going to have online expectations, be it good or bad, but they come from K-12. Their teachers have had a lot of focus and expertise in pedagogy, and then they come to a campus where that maybe isn't as prevalent. And so what our job, especially my instructional design part of the team, is how do we empower those faculty to use our spaces and to use technology to make them really successful, and take away some of the challenges that they find as they start teaching in kind of new ways. So we're going to start out with some of our main goals. If you asked if you asked anybody in IT, I hope that they would tell you number one goal is student success. And whatever we do, the things that we're going to do and we're going to talk about are they're going to impact whether students stay with us, whether they even come here because they'll see what we're doing or hear about what we're doing, but also can we flex with those students for life that gets in the way, be it a family member that gets sick, they get sick, work, or whatever it might be. And so this is kind of our guiding principles as for how we work as an IT organization. And then we have some partnerships, and I'll go in depth in some of these, but I think it's really important to note that we don't exist at all in a vacuum. You know, IT doesn't go, we're going to design this room this way or this way or this way. We work almost exclusively with faculty champions that are in their spaces, that are in their programs, and they help us relate and work with other faculty to get them to be successful in the classroom. And that's how we kind of drive innovation. We have our 10% of people who want it, and that we will give them anything that we can. And then they will drive the other 70% of the people. And then, of course, you know, you have the people who aren't going to be participatory or they may be negative, and that's fine too. Those people will either come along or they won't. And there's no point in us spending a tremendous amount of time trying to bridge those battles. So you'll see throughout this discussion around partnerships. And I think probably the most important one for me is that I'm a co-director in a center with our Excellence in Teaching and Learning Director, Scholarship and Research, Sponsor Program. So all five of us we get together monthly, we plan, we interact with faculty, we're all in the same center, that's where all my instructional designers are, and we're basically a one-stop shop for faculty to come in and get their help from us for whatever they might need. I'm looking for hands, but also if you want to say something, you can certainly interrupt me. Just a quick overview of where my team fits in the organization. This is pretty straightforward. The next one, though, I think is really important to point out is we have these solution architects. And what these people are doing is they're embedded in the colleges. They work with the leadership committees, with the deans, side by side with me, and we talk to the faculty monthly, and we work with them, and we make sure that whatever their challenges are in the classroom or anything, can we figure out a way to make it work? Or are we seeing people across campus doing the same thing, but at the cost that's doubling everything? If we could bring them together, we could save them a lot of money. So a lot of our innovation comes from these people that are kind of out in the colleges and really engaged with the faculty, and they bring it back, and that helps us understand how are we missing the ball? How do we help you be successful? So that's a really core piece of information. Oh, dang it. I thought I moved that so I wouldn't be under it, but oh, maybe I'm not on what you see. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about our design philosophy. Um, when we sit down with faculty, the first question is always, how do you want to teach? It's not, this is what you have, this is what we can afford. I don't even like to have numbers in the first go around. And I'm not saying that we have tons of money either, but I don't like limited thinking when it comes to what a space can be for a faculty member. Let's hear about what you'd want to do, and there may be ways to do it and that we can afford to do it. So I don't like to bring the budget in, or any of the challenges. Really, it's a brainstorming, talking about what they feel is the best way to teach. So we gather that feedback. We work with our students. Each week we we go to our student senate, we do some presentations, we get feedback from the students, and then we bring that back, also to our design process. And then we use that information to set expectations. Oftentimes we might have to do a project, step here, step here, step here to get where we need to go. And we fail a lot. And there's going to be there'll be a thing a little bit later, which is one of our biggest failures, but we learn from it. And I think that that's the most important thing. You have to be willing to make mistakes. And that is difficult for some people, especially if you in IT, because you don't want to make mistakes, right? That's just something that we don't like to do. We don't want to impact learning. So, but our core philosophy around a classroom is, of course, student success, but we design space. We don't just design technology. So when we talk to faculty members, it's not, would you want your projector over here? Do you want this? It's, are you going to have your students break up and work in groups? Or how are you going to do these different things? And then we build the space to make that work. So technology is there, and it is a driving factor in the design, just because making sure everything's where it needs to go. But there's a lot more to a classroom. Technology is just a tool, and it should be transparent in the sense that it doesn't impact class, and reliable. And so that's part of the challenge that we have. And you'll see standardization down on the list here. That is, it's a fine line. We want to be innovative, but we also want to be able to support everything that happens on this campus. And that is making us really rethink how the campus will work. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the support stuff a little bit more. But just as a something to think about, is classrooms are no longer just our support. The classroom is wherever a faculty member decides to teach from, be it their office, their home, the library, wherever. And it's the same with the students. And if one of those students can't get in the classroom, I treat it as, or my team, as just as important as if the projector doesn't work in the classroom for the faculty member. So we need to figure out how to make sure that we can support all the classrooms anytime and anywhere, which leads me to the proactive support. And you'll see a little bit about how we're doing that, and how we're doing some of it off campus, because we're able to have some of our classroom people still not be on campus the whole week, because we've set up some really good programs and things to work on. And then this is also important with the replacement cycle, because that talks about, if you have good equipment, it's reliable. If you start letting equipment sit there for years and years and years until it dies, then you're not going to have reliable equipment. And you can look back at our numbers. Historically, as soon as a projector got to 3-4 years of life, there were tons more issues with that classroom and with that projector. And what we're hoping to do now in a budget saving thing is we're going to laser LEDs that will allow us to keep the projectors in a little bit longer, we hope, to give us a little bit more money to fund some of these more innovative classrooms. All right. So this is a line that I really like. It's from an article that will be published here in just a little bit in a journal. But when we started out with some of our craziest innovations, in fact, our team knew nothing about what we were like. We gave them a vision. We said, we need you to make this work. And we'll get to some of those classrooms. and they had to work in a very ambiguous environment. And if all of you are in IT or know IT people, that's actually really difficult for a lot of people. So we had to work really hard to empower them, to build relationships with them and the faculty who will be using the spaces to help them kind of picture it. And there were times where they actually had to come back and be like, you're crazy, that's not possible. And then there were other times when they thought it wasn't possible, but it ended up being totally fine and doable. And it just took a little bit of creativity. So it's really interesting how we had to empower the team to work in that sense. And I put this up here really quickly because let me describe FlexSync, I should say. Our version of online Zoom room teaching, we call it FlexSync. The simpleness of the classroom is what I want to show you here. They walk in, our classrooms are Crestron controlled. They don't even have to do anything other than touch the Zoom display, enter their meeting. They turn on the classroom just like they normally would. Whatever they present to the students in the physical classroom goes to the people that are online. Super simple. And we added one screen, and I think it might even be the next one. So you log in on the computer on the right here, you'll see the computer screen is just a touch screen. And then this is the only page we added in, and the teachers could totally ignore it, but it gave them a little flexibility for camera controls and swapping out different views. Simplicity is so important when we're designing these different spaces. And you're going to see me talk a little bit about the flexing stuff just because that's so fresh in our mind and how we were doing things. Any questions? Am I going too fast? I get really excited. So if I'm going too fast, you can always tell me to slow down. So, okay. All right, so we have across campus about 30 to 40 these collaborative spaces. And this is probably what you would consider a typical collaboration space. Maybe not, most of them don't have the second monitor. This is a programming room, and they do a lot of coding competitions in here. And we've divided it out by team. That's why the colors are there, because they thought it would be really fun to have people competing against each other. But this is a standard layout. We put the screens at the tables, kind of break it all up. The hardware that runs these, to keep it affordable, we don't run hard wires back to our main system. What we do is we put vias in, Kramer via, and then we just put a matrix switcher in the cabinet. And so we have every one of these, anybody that comes in and uses these space just connects to that screen with a via. And then they use that. So we didn't have to run any extra wiring, and we can easily swap out and fix any issues that we have, but it was one of our cost saving measures. And we had to move away from Crestron Air Media just because the cost was simply too much. You can buy 3-for-1s or maybe even 4-for-1s now of the VIAs. Questions or anything? Okay. So the reason that there isn't a specific number is because these spaces are very esoteric. Like, you could consider a classroom where they turn all the desks around and face each other, an active classroom. And there are some rooms where we just put monitors on the walls and they just move the seats as needed. So it's really hard to put a definitive number on this, because if you design your classrooms well, they should be flexible to be almost anything that a faculty member would need at any given time. So, all right, keep going here. We do have some computer labs that are collaborative. This was one of our first big spaces that we did. And there's a lot of fails in here, by the way. As a good example, we thought it would be cool to do lighting zones. You can see there's a lot of lighting zones. And in fact, there's some that aren't working. Well, we thought if you turn off the main lights and would put lights right over the table where the students were working, it would break up the room for group work, and it would really create a feeling of a little bit more privacy and be open. Was just did not work in that way. And in fact, our facilities people told us never to do that again based on the lighting choices that we made. So we don't do that, but we thought it would be a cool thing to try. And this is kind of our test room. Wherever we do, this is in the library. It's right next to IT. And so we can support it anytime that they have any challenges. We don't have a lot of computer labs like this, but there are a few. We just don't see our student body needing laptops as much. 92% of them have one and don't seem to have any issues bringing it to class. So power is probably more of a challenge for us than anything. Here, everything is hardwired. And I don't know if there's any Steelcase people in here, but these tables are all Mediascape tables from Steelcase. So this was a very expensive room, and we won't do that again. It's also easier to put in your own control systems and switchers that you know, then you don't have to support random ones. And we do have a pretty standard process. And we know exactly we identify all the equipment that goes in the room. We talk to the vendors about the code that's on it. For a while, we even just made our own code and had them put it on there. And so we really focused on, no matter how crazy our room is, we make sure that we have enough flexibility to add things that we can stay mostly standardized, but when needed, we can step outside of that boundary for support. Here's an interesting one. A few years ago, I was at EDUCAUSE, and we were talking about how to design larger auditorium classrooms to be active learning. And in the session I was in, there was a guy who, he's from Canada, I can't remember his name. He does a presentation every year. I think it's Jeff. Anyway, McGill University, he had where students would turn around and flip up a table to have a little bit more space to the people behind them. But I left that thinking there's got to be a better way to not have, mechanical table things that are going to break and whatever else. So what we did was work with a furniture vendor to make the way that we tiered this room is these two are on the same tier. This one's 18 inches, this one's 36. I could be off a little bit on that. But the thin row turns around and works with the back row. And so you can have active learning and groups of students working with different things throughout this whole classroom because we're able to give them a little bit more space to spread out and turn and work with each other. And this was actually a difficult battle because it took away space. And everybody always wants to fit as many students as you can in any classroom. But realistically, as we think about what is a better learning environment for our students, cramming them into a classroom is not the best learning environment. And my argument on our campus, and I'm not winning this argument at this point, is a well-designed online course is 100 times better than any large lecture hall course. And so that is kind of the way that we're approaching things. And we're able to win small battles like this, where we can take away a row or two of students because the room itself is actually a much better learning environment. And that's the argument that we constantly have to make when it comes to things that we're doing. Here is one. This was originally a big failure. It's hard to even say that, even though I encourage it. We had our speech communication group who wanted to, we're never gonna go fully online. We wanna bring some students in. Could we just have 3 or 4 students in across the back of the room? It's never gonna be full, but we wanna give each student their own screen. And we're like, yeah, let's try it. And at the time we did it with codecs, which made it very expensive. So each screen, a student would log in, and you could have more students on the screen than one, but the way that we set it up and the way that they used it was just one. And then those students would come in, and these chairs had wheels and could be wheeled into groups to work with those online students. So the students that were online could feel like they were getting close to the same experience they would get if they were in the classroom. And when I say it was a failure, I don't mean like it didn't work, but it didn't work well. You can see there's a microphone hanging down from the ceiling. There's a microphone under the screen. Trying to figure out how to mic these groups when they were that close together was it was challenging. And we still haven't figured out the best way to do it yet, but we're working on it. And everything that we learned here about miking, we applied that to our newer Zoom FlexSync rooms because there was a lot of learning about how to control everything and do everything here. So
we solved that problem with the microphones is we have a small Shure push to talk microphone on each table. And so that when that table wanted to speak, it could speak and it wouldn't interrupt the other tables. We also have speakers over the tables that's just designated for that one table. So we're not getting any feedback from it either.
Well, that's great. I'm gonna make a note of that. Yeah, thank you. That's the perfect kind of thing. That actually, if we jump back real quickly, this room has that. And we didn't think to bring it into the other one, is if the students want to share something with the group, they can hit a button. That's great feedback. Thank you. Did you have more to say? Your hand's still up. That's why I would.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I always have a lot to say, but I'll wait to the end because no, it's just these learning spaces are wonderful. It's just what I have found is that so many people ask for them. I came up with this quote: "You don't know what you don't know till you need it." And they have a vague idea of what they expect it to turn out. And then when it's actually built, it doesn't meet their needs as well as they had expected. And therefore, they don't wind up using them the way that they wanted, or they don't use them as often.
Sure. Well, and that might happen, right? They got to learn.
Right.
What we do to help alleviate that a little bit, because that's a very common issue, especially around scheduling,
Yeah.
um, is if we partner with you on one of these rooms, you must uh, allow other people to try out your room. So we have rooms, the specific one in the library here. This one is almost wide open. It's not meant to be like class after class after class. It's, hey, do you want to try and teach an environment like this? Come down here and try it out. And we'll work with you and we'll make it work. Then we'll talk to you about your space. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't design spaces without people doing that. But I'm okay with designing a space and then them figuring out that they're going to use it differently, because they may not even be able to figure that out in 1 or 2 semesters until they really start teaching and doing what they need to do. They're going to want changes anyway. So I think I don't mind when they change and they don't think they know what they're doing. We'll change it for them. And honestly, these rooms should be, what's the right word for it? They should evolve and change and meet the needs. And so it does put a little crimp on your normal summer upgrades, which is, trying to upgrade all the stuff that just needs simply to be new and fixed, and then also designing and installing new spaces. And so it's a delicate balance, but we do have to change these things quite a bit.
But how does that affect your costs? See,
Uh,
that's with budgets, and because I work for a university, we have a lot of different schools whose budgets are somewhat different.
yep.
And so when you talk about changing out equipment to meet a different need because they weren't sure, do you include that in the beginning when you build out this room and you bill for it? You say, okay, we're going to do this, but we're going to leave this cushion for the changes once this happens. Because trying to get more money is like pulling teeth.
Yep. I know. Yeah. So the way that I have my normal classroom budget, and every year there's a little bit of flexibility in that.
Right.
And so I don't plan specifically for these kinds of things. However, what we do is we've developed a process through institutional funding, and then just with the tech directors, or they were tech directors and they reported to me, the solution architects that are out at the camp colleges. I work with them and the faculty and programs and say, okay, here's the deal. As an example, and we'll get to some budget stuff later. Here's a computer lab. Here's a standard computer lab. The computers in here meet every single one of your minimum requirements and then some. If you want something that's more than that, in English, they pay the difference to make them laptops because they want to close the tops, push them away, and have conversations and things. And so I've been working with these different departments, and we always work to try and find a way where both of us are fiscally responsible, because there is, I think, something to be said for them to put money in the game. If you're just doing these things willy-nilly, giving everybody everything that they want, with one, your budget's going to be just crazy because people will never understand the cost of what you're doing. But two, this builds in accountability on their side, saying, hey, here's the deal. If you're going to teach this way and you're going to use this, give us some money. And this is going to be something that ongoing, we're going to have to figure out how to budget for this. And so we kind of have like our minimum rooms. Now, active learning spaces like this, I set aside money every year for innovation. And some of that money might be for something that's brand new and crazy and cool. Some of it might just be, okay, these chairs, everybody hates them because they're on wheels. And so our faculty really don't like them because the rows are never straight when they come into the classroom. But the interesting thing is our students love them. They want every classroom to have these everywhere. It is like hands down. They don't even they will try and take these in the hall sometimes and sit in them to work because they really enjoy these kinds of chairs. And so it's an interesting juxtaposition between the two different sites. One of the solutions I'd like to do in this space, and we're going to build a new building, so I'm not going to spend the money on this. I'm going to do tile work on the floor that says, okay, here's where the seats would be, like a purple tile for every seat when it's in one configuration, yellow tiles when you're going to go into a circle for group configuration, and then kind of spread out the room so you can have, like, these are the base settings for how the room would look in the different main formats that you would be using. And I think that will actually be helpful moving forward. But I haven't done that yet just because someday, maybe we'll get a new building. I don't know how many of you have the older telepresence type rooms. Um, these are bad in the sense that they're expensive and they don't actually meet very many teaching needs. We had roughly 6 of them on campus, and we're moving away from all of them this summer. And in doing so, we actually created our own, in the end, 4-screen telepresence room, although it has 6 here, that's just side monitors, um, because our teachers wanted to stand and teach. And the cool thing about this one is one of my team members, Jerry, he came up with the idea that instead of putting a codec per screen like Cisco's telepresence does, why don't we use a 4K digital signage thing that puts 4 high def signals into one 4K image, send that through a codec, and then break it apart on the other side. So the cool thing about this space is it's only one codec and it sends all of the video stuff around. So this is our kind of way of rethinking that class and how the teachers can engage. So they can stand in front of the class and actually teach. They also, and it shows you in this picture here, wanted to bring the whiteboards in. This was huge feedback from our College of Business faculty. And so we have special cameras that are set up so that they can quickly jump to a whiteboard if they want to draw something and have people see what's going on. The other piece that you can't see here is that there's screens around the room, and each of these circular tables could be assigned a screen to work together on different projects. So it's a space that can be used widely for students that are just not on campus or at our Edina campus, or as an active learning space, however they need it to happen in that space, just the tables aren't right up against the monitors that the students might be working on. So it's a little bit of creativity, and it may not be perfect, but it's much more flexible. And so that's kind of why we're thinking about doing more rooms like this. And I'll tell you, it blew my mind that this 4K digital signage piece worked, and it works well. Having one codec, all of you know the cost is just exponentially less because we don't have to do that. So basically this room costs about a quarter of the cost of a full Cisco telepresence room. So, all right. So here's a question. Let me get this. We do carousel from the cities is our digital signage. We don't do a lot of stuff with it. It's very, a few years ago, as our students complained because there were so many signs around campus that just weren't getting updated or weren't even on. And we said, okay, well, let's standardize what they are because everybody had their own thing. And then each person can manage their own stuff. And that's kind of how it is. So it's very decentralized, and we just provide the infrastructure for it. So if that doesn't answer your question, let me know. I think probably, and this was brought up in Jim's keynote earlier. I don't know if he's in here. Partners and relationships are probably the most important thing that I can have my team do. We need to be able to go out there. We need to sit next to faculty. We need to be in the dean's meetings. We need to be where they are. So they can turn to us and say, you know what, I want to do that. I think that's a great idea. Can we make this happen? And we want to be down the hallway from you. And so we have those solution architects actually have offices out with the faculty and are part of each one of their different programs. And they help build these relationships because I can't be everywhere. I depend on them to make sure that we have these core relationships with people who know that they can come to us anytime with any idea, and we will find a way to make it happen on the innovation side. And that I think is a super, super important thing, and probably not how many others view IT. And some of you may be separate from IT. I guess that's a good question. As a group, are all of you, more of you in IT? I don't even know how to ask this where you can answer it all, but, or are you in an AV group that's maybe a little bit separate of IT? I don't know how to check that, but toss it in the chat box if you would. It'd be interesting to know. I think it's super important that you have an awesome relationship with your IT team, because a lot of what you're going to be doing in the future is going to be having some networking and other pieces for management that are going to be super important. I'm actually going to jump down here to a couple ahead because I want to show you something. So those of you who are familiar with Zoom may be able to see, that we can see everything that's going on in a classroom, what's happening with that. But this is how many network devices we have on our campus that are in our classroom. Every microphone, every camera, everything. And that is part of what has kind of revolutionized how we can be more proactive in our support structure. And I can allow people to work from home some of the time to support these classrooms because they can do it from the distance. And I never thought that I would have over 2,000 devices just because of AV on the network. And I don't even know that that's the end. I think in the end, once we get where we're going, I imagine we're going to probably almost double that with all the rooms that we're redesigning and changing over time. So that gives us a lot of power to look at what's happening in all of our different classrooms. And that's another reason why it's important to standardize, because then you have monitoring tools, dashboards, and things that you can look at and manage to be proactive in your classroom support. And the way that we do it is if you call 5 minutes.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Hello. Okay. You may be having, am I knocked out or can you all hear me?
I think he just gave you an update about you have 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, so I gotta go fast. Okay. So when you call, normally we answer your call. 5 minutes, we're in the classroom. That's just how we do it. That's how we manage it. I have 2 classroom people full time, and I have 4 student employees that work for us, and we manage the entire campus. This semester, though, and I put cloudy classrooms on here because I think it's important. It's like I said earlier, it is no longer just our physical classrooms, it's everywhere. And so we're trying to rethink what that means support structure wise, and how do we make sure that students are having the best possible experience. And so we're really trying to figure that piece out. I think the one last thing, let me make sure. I want to talk quickly about budget because that's one of the main things that people are always asking about. How do you afford things? What do you do? One is, we are working with our projectors and moving them to laser LEDs. And actually, I think this year we did. We no longer have a normal lamp projector on campus. We're hoping that can go from a 4-year recycling phase to a 7. We will know over the next couple of years because we're hitting the 5-year mark on a bunch of ours now. So we'll see if that can work. If it does, that'll give me a little bit more money. And then we have an 8-year recycling phase on our restaurants. Occasionally, in a lower use room, we might run that to 10, but we don't replace document cameras, VCR, DVDs, anything on a regular cycle. We just do it when it breaks. There's just no reason at this point, unless we're going to start changing aspect ratios or maybe a leap to 4K might make a difference. But I don't foresee that happening right now. But so we're kind of expanding the classroom basically to a 7 to 8 year recycling phase. There will be no equipment older than that in our classrooms. And then, like I said before, right sizing the computer labs is important. And that is, we do Dell micros, so they don't have to be crazy devices. I mean, everything on our campus can be done by one of those. Is it the best? No, but it saves us money. I think it's $870 a machine. And anything beyond that, the department is responsible for if they want to do something special. And then the other thing that I think is really important is our campus partners. When it comes to colleges that are remodeling or facilities, we work with them on their timeline. So say we had a classroom that was gonna get remodeled by the facilities, but it wasn't on our plan for another couple of years. We would just do it at that year and move it to a different thing. That way we can make sure that we get everything that we need in that new design. And so we kind of have to have a little bit of flexibility and run around facilities, because I'd rather have them do the outlets when they're redesigning the space than have them come back and have to do something a little bit different. And so it's really important to maintain those partnerships. So maybe I'll stop there, but I'm very willing to answer any other questions that might come out here.
The 5-minute warning didn't make a ton of sense because in theory, the next one starts at 1:30.
Oh, so I can keep talking.
So I'm not sure what happened there.
No, that's true. We're going to go to 1:30, but I do have a question as long as I'm talking here. So you had talked about one of your active learning spaces that you were just using the Kramer vias, no wires.
Mhm.
So we're currently looking at designing or renovating an existing space, active learning space. And we talked about that, but it just seems so terrifying to me to be reliant on something like that. Of course, who's got a cell phone? Who's got a cell phone here, right? The home line's right here. Let me mute that and I'll be right back.
Sure. Oh, he won't hear my answer. So that was an interesting dilemma. For years, I've wanted wireless in the classroom and it just hasn't worked. It's been really bad. About 2 years ago, we decided, no, 3 years ago, we started with some of the Crestron, can't remember what they're called now, Air Medias, and they were surprisingly okay and reliable. And then we started looking at cheaper options because and so we ended up on the Kramers. And I will tell you right now that they are the most reliable thing we have on our campus. People don't have to have a stupid dongle and a dongle that breaks all the time, because every single one of our classrooms, everyone has one of these in it. So you don't need a dongle anymore. The HDMI cable doesn't have to fall back in the cabinet. It doesn't get broken or bent or whatever. Crazily enough, it's actually more reliable to have the Via Goes than it was to just work on wire. So I know that seems contradictory, but it's what we've been seeing. And the cool thing about having it in every classroom and every conference room means that our faculty are using it in multiple locations and becoming very comfortable with it as a standard way of connecting. And so when a student has an issue because they may be connecting with their own laptop, faculty are able to help them out a little bit. And so that's one of the big things with the standardization argument is if they can use it in day to day, it's going to help them be successful everywhere else. Does that
So
make
we've
sense?
been-
Managing them?
What's that?
Are you managing your little Kramers?
Yeah, there is I honestly am probably not the best person to ask, but there is a dashboard app that I know that they look at. I don't know what that looks like though.
So we did, we tried the Kramer and variety of things. We're actually using the Mirror app is the only that we present. The original share links were Mirror app. The original Air Medias were Mirror app. It's the only one of those, that type of device that will run on our network. Our network is so segmented that it's very difficult to get those devices to work. And we are driving there. That's just standard in our classroom. But now here we are, we're talking about the Apple M1 chip during the lunch. The new Apple laptop with the M1 won't install the client for the WePresent. So eventually it will, but if you're just totally reliant on wireless and someone like Apple does a software, a chip change, how do you deal with that? All of a sudden, completely out of your control, your room is broken.
Yep, that's true. And so I have a little bit of power and able to do some stuff with that. So one, I manage when updates happen to a lot of the machines and things. So, and we can't stop that M1 stuff from happening, but that's why we keep HDMI cables in the room, right? I don't think we would ever go to the point where we aren't going to have some kind of a backup cable there, and you're going to have a dongle short term. But the other piece we do, because sometimes just the OS itself, like we did have this issue with Big Sur, is I don't release it until after we've kind of, typically they give us a new one in October-ish. We might not open it up for people to download and get it until December, because we want to make sure that if there needs to be a .1, we can do some testing. I'm one of the main beta testers. I'm running an M1 Mac, but I haven't been to campus to test a VIA, so I'm gonna do that now that you're saying that. But actually, since M1s have been out, we really haven't had any classes on campus that are truly big. So that is something that we probably have to watch out for this next year.
We do control that as well. We control the release of the image to university owned stuff, but we can't control what the students bring in. And we need whatever the students to bring in. We need to be able to make that work as well. So I like wires. I love wireless. I mean, I think the world is wireless. We need to be striving for that. But I can't pull the plug on the wires on this new design. So that was interesting to me that you did that in that one room.
Well, we did that in all of our rooms. With the
Oh.
exception of a couple rooms, every one of them is wireless right now when it comes to collaboration space. We just simply don't run cables to the tables where the students are. And honestly, we haven't had, I mean, I don't check tickets regularly, but this is not something that's come up as an issue. Because even if one student doesn't work, somebody at that table who has a computer may be able to make it work, and then they don't worry about it. But that's a really good point. and there probably is an argument for wires. I just, you know, at a certain point in time, I gotta let it go. So I'll deal with the consequences as they come.
We had some of the Via Go's, the first gen, and there's a new Via Go 2, and it seems to work even better than the regular Via Go. They've updated some of the hardware and some of the connection stuff, and so far we've been, in my testing has been pretty good. We're gonna deploy some this summer. We also do immersive solstice in some of the rooms. But boy, that's a much bigger lift. I mean, immersive solstice, they're really expensive. They're really fancy. They seem to work well, but they're like,
Yeah.
you can put 4 rooms in with the Via Go 2s for what one immersive solstice costs.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, and yeah, you're limited to what I think 2 screens still, probably 2 on the 2s. And I think that's okay for now. I mean, would I love to have Solstice pods? Yeah, but it's just not fiscally attainable. I feel like there
Can
was
you
one.
write down in the chat somewhere maybe what those Kramers are, model number or something, so I could take a look at them?
Yep, we can get that in there. I'll do it right now. Any other questions? I'm looking to see what else I could jump to. What some of our classroom plans for the summer might be, if you're interested. We are working on. Let me go there. So one of the biggest feedback points we got from our students is that our original FlexSync stuff didn't allow for the students in the classroom to see the other students as well, and vice versa. And we did encourage faculty to have students who had laptops to log in and interact in that sense, but it just didn't work. And so what we're trying to figure out now is how can we put walls up and move projectors or cameras in ways that give the students, and this is probably the singular feedback between the other feedback from the students is almost universally that faculty need to have more training. And I mean, we know that we can't, but we also can't require it or anything. And so we did have the largest engagement ever as we were going into this school year. A week before duty days, we had 120 faculty come in for training, and then another 120 during their duty days. And so we got a good swath of our faculty, but it simply just isn't enough. And it was a big lift to move your classes online, even with a notice of the summer, to make true pedagogical changes. That's a challenge. And so we knew that. But the big one from the students that impacted us are, can we make it easier for us to see each other? And they want to see the other students. And so that's our goal this summer. And this is a classroom, it's from Steelcase, I think. I'm pretty sure it's from Steelcase. And this is one of the things that we're trying to figure out. Do we put a secondary projector in? Do we put it on the side of the room? Do we put it in the front of the room? We have a lot of faculty members who like the whiteboard. And if you start doing the dual projection piece, one, the cost is going to be dramatically different. Although we would probably go with a less expensive projector if we did this. But I don't think we would go with large screens because they just simply aren't big enough and affordable enough to make a tremendous difference. One of the biggest things that we learned when we were building our rooms is that we were going to put a plasma on the back, or LCD or whatever, on the back wall. But even a 65-inch isn't as nice as putting a 27-inch screen right up by the faculty member where they were teaching. It was just, that was a better view. It made them more comfortable. And so that's what we did. This is kind of turning that on its head a little bit and giving students rows to think about, or the faculty member with students in rows and things. So we hope that maybe we'll be able to do some of this. And I can't remember, is it Piet that did the lightning round? What he was doing in his classrooms was awesome. So I'm going to have to figure out, I think he's even in here. I really liked that. And so we're trying to figure that out for the summer. And that'll be one of our bigger goals, along with moving all of our telepresence rooms into standardized layouts of things that we can support. So one last note, if there are no questions about that, one of the things that we noticed with our students is, and I'm assuming you all kind of had kind of the mix and match where some students were in the classroom, some students were online, and it was crazy. One of the things that the faculty got feedback from with the students was, I can't go to your class physically because when I leave your class, I have to be in another class online and I have to get home or somewhere where I can have at least a modicum of privacy and to feel like I can engage in whatever in the classroom. And of course, why? I mean, we couldn't schedule things with that in mind. That's just not something that we could do. So one of the things that we're doing is another piece of what I'm in charge of is what we call informal learning spaces. And it's my belief that the spaces outside the classroom where the students talk before they go in the room, where they talk after the room, where they eat, these are just as important as a physical classroom and with the teacher in the front of it. Like that peer-to-peer learning is super, super important. So one of the things that we're doing, and this is crazy, and I don't know how it's going to go. Students love the idea though, is we're going to put in small booths across our campus and in all of our little areas. And we have roughly 40 kind of informal learning spaces that we control the furniture in. And so we're going to put these out there and allow the students to go in and jump in between classes so they can be physically there or online, whatever they might need to be at that time. This is also in response to our students. They have devices, but the biggest issue is they simply don't have good internet. And it's almost embarrassing the way these apartment buildings in our town manage their internet access, and these students don't have any other options. So, and this is another answer to the, hey, we thought everybody had access to internet. That is just simply not true. They do not have access to good internet. And so we're hoping that this will even spill a little bit into, are we going to have students who get to come to advising sessions and have a little privacy? Can they meet with a counselor online? We moved one of our classroom designs where we film real counseling interactions. And we've started having counselors in those spaces when there aren't classes, and they provide counseling for students who are online and can't ever get to campus. So we're hoping that this is going to be a big win. I don't know if it will be, but it's an exciting thought. And the students seem to think that this was a really great way of addressing some of their needs to getting between classes and having some space on campus to work. So that's kind of the crazy idea. And then that's about it. Anything else? Any other questions that I can answer?
Yes, where are these privacy pods, for lack of a term, are going? Are they going to be like 2 or 3 in one area, and then 2 or 3 in another area? Or are they going to just be in a central room for a bunch of people to use?
All over campus. I think it's 21 buildings. And so we're gonna pick the best spots, and we're gonna move the furniture around and add these. Cool thing is they just need a power outlet, and then they have a fan inside them and power and everything for the students. And so we're gonna put it everywhere on campus, because it's kind of the same problem, right? If I can't walk out of a classroom and I have to get across campus to the library, that's still not helping me get to a class in time, if
Right.
depending on how things go. So we're hoping to spread these totally wide on campus and be able to have our students get what they need right there.
Homegrown, or you making those, or you buying them from somewhere?
Buying them, we're working with Steelcase. They're pretty cool. I'm excited. Other questions? Oh boy. Did I do that good of a job, or did I not do that good of a job?
Great job.
Let's see here. Oh, there might be some in here. Oh, off topic. So there is in your share screen, you can go to advanced when you click on share screen, and there is a slides as a virtual background beta button. And for those of you who want to try it, it's actually worked really well, I think. Here, I was trying to be smart when I was making some of my things, so I wouldn't be as much in the way. I'm getting back to the beginning. And my head wouldn't cover everything, but that didn't work out as well as I was hoping. Like I didn't put a bubble right here and things. So
Matthew, we just recently used this in a presentation as well. And you have to use PowerPoint, correct?
oh, that's a great question. I believe so.
I think it only works with PowerPoint, and you have to have PowerPoint installed on the device you're using, but it does work great.
Yeah, it's
Glad to see somebody is using it.
So yeah, perfect. Let's see what else. All right. I don't know that there's any other big question. Oh, somebody had about fiber. No. Okay. Yeah. Well, if you think of anything, I'll be here the rest of the day. And If you think of anything, oh, thank you for putting the Kramer link in there, Katie. I think we're good. If there's no more questions, we can go back to the main thing.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording here then. All right, thank you, Matthew. Thank you for everybody for participating.
Thank you, everyone.